roused to bouts of cutting up cinema like it's never been cut up before. There's going to be reviews. There's going to be interviews. There's going to be hijinks. And there's going to be a whole lot of cutting in this room. The Cutting Room Movie Podcast. Coming at you 128 kilobytes per second.
Hey everyone, welcome to a very special interview episode of the Cutting Room Movie Podcast. As always, as usual, I'm your host, Tom Detloff. Tonight, my co-hosts, once again, I got Mr. Joe Christiana and the counselor, Adam Shoulder, is with me. In a few minutes, we're going to talk to actor, writer, director, Frank Whaley, Joe. Frank Whaley is on the Cutting Room.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan. I had to contact him to get him onto Skype, and I realized he's probably the only guest that I've been nervous to talk to. I after watching the Jimmy Show, I have such great admiration.
It's amazing. I mean, think about like all the guests that we've had on here. I mean, we've had some amazing people on here. The only one that had ever really made me nervous was Brian Dennehy, and it wasn't because it was Brian Dennehy. It was because like before we got on the air, he was very feisty. He was like, let's get this fucking thing rolling already. I know you're a Golden Globe winner and everything, but geez Louise.
I was just like, hey Frank, I'm this is Joe from the Cutting Room.
I'm a real big fan. You're the best. No, but seriously, man, this dude I have been watching since I was a little kid. I mean, he obviously pops up early in my life in career opportunities. And what's so great about career opportunities, this is where he, this guy shares scenes with some of the very best actors in this business. I mean, we're talking about Kevin Spacey, Samuel L. Jackson.
And does scenes for some of the greatest directors, too, as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, not to even mention that, but he's been with Jack Nicholson, Tom Cruise, Kevin Costner, Marlon Brando. At the beginning of his career, I mean, his first, I think, really big break besides his role in Ironweed, he has a starring role in Career Opportunities. And at the beginning of that movie, he goes head-to-head with John Candy in a hilarious scene. I mean, Candy is like the comedic heavyweight of the past 50 years. I mean, he's amazing on screen. And Frank Whaley is just really almost scene stealing with this dude. And he's just a young man at the time, which is awesome. But he, Joe, I mean, he's been a big part of our lives for a very, very long time.
Yeah, absolutely. Man. And popping up in
a million of them. Yeah. But we're going to concentrate today on his 2001 film, The Jimmy Show, because our theme the past couple of weeks has been stand-up comedy. Last week, we talked about Kevin Pollak's 2015 documentary, Misery Loves Comedy. And as everyone knows, this week, we're doing Scorsese's The King of Comedy and Frank Whaley's 2001 film, The Jimmy Show. And Joe, you wrote a beautiful intro.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it was a really great intro. Very surprising, but I guess our love for independent film is just, it can be a little bit overwhelming. And Frank here really delivers. What you do in your intro is you refer to his film as a blues song.
Yeah, I'd love to run that by him too. That was an angle that kind of seemed pretty obvious to me.
Yeah,
just the beauty of feeling bad, I think.
Right, and he really, I mean, he just captures so much pain and disturbance in the Jimmy Show, and still, I mean, he leaves room to laugh too, which is amazing. It's just a really great piece of independent cinema. Adam, you were, and that was the first time you saw the Jimmy Show.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, so this is.
Oh, it was it's a great film, and I look forward to exploring that a little bit here.
So why are we listening to me? This whole
yeah.
Time? I mean,
why the hell are you doing all the talking? Crying out loud! Isn't Frank Whaley here?
Yeah, he's here somewhere.
I can talk to you anytime, Tom.
Yeah, no. All right, that's all the time we have, so we're gonna have to wrap things up. Let's talk to Frank. Frank, how you doing, my man?
I'm great. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we could
Cool.
totally hear you fine. Fine.
Welcome, man.
Yeah,
Thanks.
definitely. Welcome to the Cutting Room Movie Podcast.
I'm
As
just sitting here having a beer with Dennehy.
dude, this guy loved to drink. He was telling us some war stories when he was on, man. He was just going, I mean, he was giving us the dirt on everything that happened in the 80s, for crying out loud. He was hilarious.
If you do an X-ray of his stomach, you'll just see like a Schlitz sign. That's what
An old neon one with
old neon, and the H is missing.
Frank Schlitz, I thought you were a Pabst Blue Ribbon guy.
Yes, yeah, it's good. That's right. Yeah, we probably Schlitz probably we probably wanted Schlitz. I tried to get Schlitz, but they wouldn't let me use the product in the movie.
So, man, you've been really busy lately. In 2014, your latest directorial effort, Like Sunday Like Rain, was very well received. You had Billy Joe Armstrong in the film, which is really really interesting. I got to tell you, I kind of grew up listening to punk rock, from the 70s and 80s. So Green Day to me was always, I was always a little skeptical of them. But Joe, this past year, Billy Joe Armstrong actually toured on stage with my favorite band, The Replacements. He was
That's right.
helping them out a little bit, which is
He's got some street cred with you now, Tom.
yeah. Now all of a sudden I'm a big fan, and you throw him in a Frank Whaley movie, forget about it.
I think I understand. I was the same way with Green Day because I grew up. We're probably in the same age category, and I grew up listening to like Clash and the Jam, and I when I heard Green Day, it seemed somewhat derivative of all that, and so I was kind of a purist, and I didn't want to accept Green Day, but what I found out, but my kids love Green Day. I have young teenagers; they love Green Day. So, and Billy Joe is such a smart guy. He's such a talented musician, and I think when I listen to American Idiot, that kind of takes the music that I grew up with and loved, like punk rock music and that, and he makes it into something current and now, and he's such a beautiful guy, and he's such a smart guy, and he wants to be an actor, and I think
that's amazing.
Yeah, and I think he's done another feature after, Like Sunday Like Rain was his first feature, and then he did another one which I haven't heard anything about, but I know that he's very serious about it, and he works really hard at it, and Like Sunday Like Rain, he had a brief but very pivotal role, and he did a great job. So
how you real quick on Like Sunday Like Rain with Billy Joe? How was he? How did he take direction? Did he seem natural? What was it? Was it a learning process with him? Tell me a little bit about his chops.
Acting is not as easy as it looks, and it comes very, very naturally to some, and others have to work at it a little bit to get to where they need to be. And I put Billy in that category. Also, he was very nervous because it was his first film, and he's on a film set, and he wants to not because he's on like a big like Martin Scorsese film or whatever, but he doesn't want to blow it. His main concern was not screwing up, and not
he's an artist.
He's an artist.
I get the sense that he is a hell of a performer because I saw Green Day maybe about 5 years ago or so out here at in LA at the Forum, and this guy was playing to the last row on the top tier, like all the way in the back, and I don't mean just volume and intensity. As a performer, he was really reaching everybody, just that stood out to me, even above and beyond the music that I like, is that this dude is a performer. So I imagine, I'm guessing that translates well to the screen once he settles into it.
He cares a lot about what he does, and he's a great guy to have around because he didn't ask for anything. He didn't, he came on it was a very, very low budget film. We didn't have any extras, any perks for Billy Joe, and he understood that and didn't want, and made a point of saying, I don't want anything. I just I just want to show up, do my thing, and he was very friendly, and he, in terms of taking direction, he was very, very adamant about me telling him, how I wanted it and what I wanted from him, and so it was good. It was it's always a little bit tricky working with somebody new. Like, the main actor in that film was a 12-year-old who had never done a film either. So I kind of took the same approach with Billy Joe as I did with the young, with the young kid that I had in the central role, and just kept it real
Wow.
simple. Kept it real simple, real loose, and you just get as much as you can, and then you sort it out in the editing room, and so that's it.
Nice.
Music seems to be such a big part of you and obviously Robert Whaley's life, Frank. Listen, we're going to talk about the Jimmy Show. We're going to definitely do that. But since we're on music, I mean, I'm going to be a little bit selfish here, and let's go back a little bit in time and talk about your work with Oliver Stone, particularly The Doors. I mean, you played Robbie Krieger, I mean, in such a huge film. Val Kilmer is a friend of yours, I believe.
Uh-huh.
So working with Val must have been an amazing treat at the time.
Mhm.
I mean, what was it that drew you to Robbie Krieger, and what was it that you think drew Oliver Stone to you to play Robbie Krieger?
We had just done Born on the Fourth of July together, and had a really good experience with that, and he. Yeah, he cast a pretty wide net for those roles. He was seeing a lot of people, and he called and asked me to come in for a meeting to talk about it and about Robbie, and I think that the thing that he saw in me that resembled Robbie was kind of at the time, kind of a very awkward thing. I can't really put. I don't. He couldn't put his finger on it, and I can't.
You
Really
play it. You play it with you play the role with such sweet innocence.
maybe that was what he saw.
You really do, man. And like it's almost like you're like the little brother to Jim Morrison, and you and Val, together have this really unique connection on screen. I see it when I watch the film. I've seen the film many times. I used to be obsessed with it when I was a younger man because being just obsessed with the Doors for a short
Right.
period of time in my life. You run through the movie many times. But what I always cherished was that relationship that you and Val Kilmer have on screen, and how you're kind of like you have like this little brother quality to his character, and it's really romantic. It's very beautiful, Frank. I mean, you do such a great job with this role, man. It's
Well,
it's
that's
amazing.
thank you. That's gratifying because that was really the relationship those two guys had. Jim was this kind of bigger than life presence, and Robbie was a very quiet little kind of wallflower, and so that was their relationship in life, and Robbie was clearly was behind a lot of their biggest hits, and so they had a great collaboration musically, but they were close. They were really close, and they shared a great a great bond, and that's sort of the way I met Val on that film, and we immediately clicked and hit it off, and we had a kind of a similar rapport,
Yeah.
and even though I think I'm we're about the same age. If I'm not, I might even be older. He is, but we we got along, and he then he was in my first film that I directed.
Right, Joe the King. Yeah.
Yeah, and did a great job there, and
How
so
is
yeah.
that working with him as an actor? Because you hear the rumors, and obviously you're a good buddy of his, but can you shed some light on that for us? Like
I
the
mean, I haven't
rumors that
seen.
we
I
hear.
mean, yeah. I mean, I haven't. We were very close at the time, and then with
Yeah.
Joe King, but I haven't seen him or spoken to him in a long time. But those rumors are true. Like he can be a real pain in the ass with people, but because I don't know what it was between the two of us, but he and I had a different kind of rapport and relationship. So
Was it like 2 cases of Schlitz beer
it could
that
be,
maybe
yeah.
you shared
We
together?
just he just he and I had he gave a lot of people a lot of static and a lot of shade, but he I think we were sort of very we were very similar in many ways. We were on the same page, and so and even when he came to work with me as an actor in my film, you know, and it was again that was a very low budget film as well. He just did his thing, you know, and he didn't, and he worked with me, and he listened, and he, you know, and he went above and beyond in that film.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I'll always be thankful to Val
You
for
know,
that.
it's
Nice.
so funny, you know, you say that, Frank, because we've talked to Tim Blake Nelson before on the show,
Mhm.
and Tim, you know, talks about Val just when he's on, and there's almost nothing like it, and he brings out not only the best in himself, but I think his desire is just to bring out the best in everyone that's around him,
Mhm.
and he just has that natural gift, right? I mean,
Yeah.
he's
Yeah, he's you know he cares, like, you know, like we were talking about Billy Joe, like he cares a great deal,
yeah.
and you know, sometimes that can come off as being, you know, who knows what, but you know, he can rub either way. He can rub some folks the wrong way, or be, you know, come off a little bit strange or whatever. But you know, I always considered Val to be a great artist, and you know, and I hope he's doing well. And yeah, but you know, I always remember him and you know, more we had a blast doing the Doors. I mean, the Doors was an insane period of time, and
Sure was.
4 months of pure like chaos and craziness. You
Is
know,
are all like is Oliver Stone like that? I mean, is he chaotic in everything that you've worked with him on, from JFK to Born on the Fourth of July and World
pretty
Trade Center?
much, pretty much. I mean, he is the master. That guy is you know, I've never had any experience like I've had on those film sets. You know, you feel like you're doing something extremely important. The
Yeah.
last film I did was World Trade Center,
Right.
and you know, they it was just such a big, huge feeling movie on that. When you're on that set, it's an honor. It's a great honor to be on that film set. And
Do you get the sense that he's charging it with like political ambitions and all these great far-reaching, you know, kind of themes? And is that what's going through the set when he's making his films like that?
yeah. I mean, there's that, but there's also, you know, Oliver Stone is a very intimidating person. You know, he's
Right.
and you know, I'm a grown man, and I feel like a little boy, a little kid around him. And at World Trade Center, you know, the thing, visual picture I have in my mind of that you know, I played most of my scenes on this rubble that they recreated, this you know, ground zero that they recreated in California. Like they recreated on, you know, at
Amazing.
Hughes
It's great.
Air Force Base, this
Wow.
huge pile of rubble, which was like that was surreal to be working
Breathtaking, I'm sure. Yeah.
2 months of just overnight working on that set. And
Wow.
and Oliver between takes kind of, you know, like just pacing around that set, and you know, huge plumes of marijuana smoke like emanating from his face, backlit.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you about the Doors.
Backlit.
I mean, you guys are doing the method thing on the Doors.
Yeah.
Were there actual, yeah, you
Yeah,
know,
there was a lot of that. There was a lot of that going on, and you know,
that's amazing.
we had about a month and a half of prep, which is unheard of. You know, these days,
Right.
and I'm sure, you know, that's a thing of the past. The amount of money that they spent on film on those kinds of things. For instance, he brought all of us, the four of us that played the band, to California and put us in SIR studios on a daily basis to rehearse as a band, even though none of us played the instruments that we were supposedly playing at the stage. I mean,
That's hilarious.
and they had playback, and they had like Paul Rothschild, who's the, you know, the guy who,
Right. Their engineer. Yeah.
like, all those guys there, and
Wow.
you know, and we did that for a couple of months, and it basically amounted to us sitting around and bullshitting for, you know, 8 hours a day,
Right.
at I'm sure great expense. And but we got to, one good thing is we all got to know each other very well, you know, and you know, and that's where Val and I got really close. And you know, and then they wanted to, you know, there's scenes in the desert, you know, and they hired like 2 Lear jets to take the four of us, and you know,
Oh my God.
Amazing.
Meg Ryan. I remember Meg Ryan being there, and they flew us all out to the desert, out to Needles, California, in the desert, and to rehearse those scenes. and I remember. I think it was Kevin Dillon coming and saying, "Hey, everybody's going to drop acid into caves."
Tell
But not part of the movie. This was like actually there he was talking
Yeah,
about drumming.
this was a month before we started shooting in the desert.
Kevin Dillon
and I
Johnny
said,
Drama.
Johnny Drama, and I said that sounds great. Have a great time with that. I'm going to do is go out in the middle of the desert to a cave and drop acid, whatever the hell that is, with Oliver Stone and Val Kilmer and them.
Oh man, do you regret that at all? Do you regret it at all?
No,
I mean, that's an experience.
most likely I wouldn't be sitting here now.
It seems like it could have been a good plan, all except for the fact that Oliver Stone was in that cave.
Yeah.
That seems to be the wild card in all of that.
I heard some wild stories from that. I went back to my hotel room, locked the door, and and watched Cops. and drank a box of.
Hoping they wouldn't show up on one of the
Yeah,
scenes.
yeah. Like shut the blinds really tight, and it was.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I'd be more paranoid watching Cops than dropping acid with Stone.
I was paranoid knowing that they were doing LSD, within a quarter of a mile of my hotel room. That's enough for me.
That's great, man.
But that was kind of the common thread throughout the making of that film, and there was all kinds of craziness, going on out there, and
I would imagine more so on The Doors than the other films, but is that still part of a bit of the culture on most of his sets?
Much more on The Doors because of the nature of and the amount of people involved and these huge concert scenes that would go on for days and days and days and nights and nights and nights, and Billy Idol and all these people, Mike Madsen, all these weird people coming in and out of the film.
Oh man, yeah.
And these parties that we would be filming would just take on would become real, with the girls and the drugs and the drinking and Val.
You must have felt at that point in your career, not that you hadn't done a great deal of work up till then, but that you were living the dream at that point. I mean, you were essentially in The Doors.
Yeah.
Living that at that moment, were you locked into that just reality of
I wish I had. I really do. I wish I had acknowledged, like, this is great. I'm doing like a huge movie here, and I've got this one coming out. But at the time, and I think about this often, at the time, I was so not Hollywood. I lived in New York City in Hell's Kitchen in a studio apartment,
Nice.
and I came from a very meager beginning in my life, and so. I had an agent. I had no publicist. I didn't do press. I didn't do anything really. I only did what was asked of me, and probably.
Did you feel like like you were an imposter? Like maybe you didn't belong there or something?
I'll tell you what. I remember coming back to New York after filming The Doors, and I had done a whole bunch of movies around that time. I was very busy. I was doing stuff back to back to back to back, and driving around in a Corolla around California, and staying in a cheap hotel. Came back to New York and I saw a huge billboard. Can't remember for what film it was. Maybe Born on the 4th of July. I'm not sure. Or maybe Career Opportunities. I'm not sure. That dorky poster that they had of me with Jennifer Connelly in Times Square. I thought, oh my God, that's. I had no idea. It was a huge billboard in the middle of Times Square. And I went and bought a disposable camera and took a picture.
Nice.
Yeah. So,
that's the moment, huh? I guess when you're in a huge billboard in Times Square with Jennifer Connelly of all people, I guess that is the moment that you could say that you could at least allow yourself to say that this is pretty awesome.
In her one and only comedy.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And she was like, what was she, like 16, 17 at the time?
She was 17. She was just.
Jeez Louise.
She had her mom with her. She was still a minor, so she had to have her mom with her on the set.
Oh boy.
Or on location there. We were shooting down south somewhere, and so yeah, so that was she was. I think she was not yet legal.
Let's talk a little bit about your directing career, Frank, because you've put together for pretty darn good movies. I mean, you take us through the '90s with your acting, and you work with some really great directors. I mean, I first of all, I think Danny DeVito has made some excellent movies, and you're
Yeah.
working awful with him, alongside with Jack Nicholson is really excellent. I mean, your character's a major, a major part of the plot,
Mhm.
and you don't really see it. You see that coming, and you're working with DeVito as a director. And obviously, I mean, we have to bring up the fact that, you're in probably one of the most famous scenes in cinematic history of all time in Pulp Fiction. I mean, there's no denying that. But you're working with Oliver Stone, and you're just, I mean, you're working with all these great directors. So in '99, you decide to make Joe the King, and you decide to direct it, and it's a very I think it's a very ballsy project, man. I mean, because I mean, from what I understand, this is a little semi autobiographical, is it not?
It is. It's based in large part on my childhood, growing up in Syracuse, New York, and in the '70s. As I mentioned, kind of very poor, and and Val Kilmer plays my sort of alcoholic, abusive father, and yeah, and I was thinking about, I'd always been a writer, and I'd always been writing. I was writing plays a lot when I was younger and in high school and college, and I thought about writing this as maybe as a short novel or something about, because my childhood was
Yeah,
interesting and
yeah.
and kind of dramatic, and I thought it would make a good story, and so I kind of decided to make it into a screenplay, and that's what I did around 90, right around 1997, 1998. I started writing it, and I sent it to a bunch of directors to see if I could get some interest in somebody, and I had my heart set on Robert Benton, who I thought would be,
Hmm.
you
Oh
know,
wow.
and because I always admired his work, and Ula Grossbart. I sent to Ula Grossbart and Robert Benton, and and I didn't hear anything from either one of them.
No, I know the second name. What who is that?
Ula Grossbart, he
Yeah.
he did Straight Time, which was on,
Oh,
Straight
right,
time.
right. The yeah, with Dustin Hoffman.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's a great
uh,
movie. Who
Teresa
wrote that?
Russell.
That's a who
Um, I'm not sure. I'm
is
not
that an
sure.
Eddie Bunker story or
It's Straight Time. It's about a guy who gets out of who just gets out of jail.
right? And he gets sucked back into the life,
Kind
right?
of gets sucked back. Yeah, Gary Busey is in the film. It's a
Hmm.
really really
Yeah,
powerful
I've
film,
seen.
and
Yeah.
the way it was filmed and the way the feel of it, I thought would be really suitable. And I had met Ulu Grossbard at a thing at a I'd been invited to the Sundance Film Institute does a thing, and I met him there, and but so but anyway, the point is, nobody wanted to direct the film, so I kind of out of necessity had to figure a way to do it myself. So that was
I
how.
mean,
Now
obviously,
it's
go on, Adam. I'm sorry.
no, it's not that easy. In terms of just being able to decide, okay, I'm going to make a film. So,
Yeah.
how were you able to swing that? You have
I was lucky that I had a couple of friends at the time who happened to be, sort of movie stars, and that was really it. I
that
was able
helps.
to yeah, that helps. That's the only way I got that movie made. No one ever would make that movie. And but I got Ethan Hawke, and I got Val, as we talked about, and I got
Right.
John Leguizamo, and to be involved. Not he was also involved as a producer on the film and in the film, and so
Right.
essentially that's how I got the film made.
Right.
Also, the scripts I got a couple of investors, Canadian investors, that because initially because they liked the script, they said, "Yeah, we'll do it, but you got to get this, and that, so and so and so and so and so and so," and they give me a
Mhm.
list of names, which were absurd and preposterous, and
Of course.
Fucking Canadians.
yeah, Tom Cruise, and they wanted, but the main character was 12 years old. They wanted Tom Cruise to play the part. Why can't he be older? Why can't he be older?
I'm
And
surprised they didn't want Michael J. Fox to play the part.
right. Well, I'm sure that might have come up. no doubt. No doubt. But that's how it's been. I've done this 4 times, and it's the same story, and it
Well,
gets worse and worse. Yes.
of all of
It
your
gets
entire
worse and
career,
worse.
that's what I mean. I admire the most that you strike out on your own and you produce these wonderful personal dramas, man. Kudos to you. It's great, and you surround yourself with artists like Ethan Hawke, and Leguizamo, who seem to me, at least. I mean, I don't know them from a hole in the wall, but they seem to be in it for the expression and the art and the exploration.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's really great to see something like that, man.
Well, I'm lucky that I had contacted those people, and they were willing to take the journey with me and do it for no money, and like nobody got paid on that, and so I was lucky. And it was the same with the Jimmy Show, and with Ethan, and the Jimmy Show started.
I love the Jimmy Show, Frank. I fucking
Thanks.
love it.
Oh, I'm glad to hear it.
I really love it. I brought it to the show, and like I said, we were doing stand-up comedy themed movies, and I'm like, I gotta get this movie out there, because it's just such a freaking dark, depressing piece of work, man.
It is.
It's beautiful. It's so, Jimmy O'Brien, I've been there, brother, I've been there,
Yeah.
But this is your second time doing a film, and you, instead of writing the screenplay, you adapted this, right?
I adapted it from a one-act play, which the one-act play was called Veins and Thumbtacks. The playwright's name is Jonathan Mark Sherman, and I had done this play. I had played Jimmy. His name was Jimmy Bonaparte in the play, and I had played this role on stage, off Broadway. Ethan Hawke directed the play.
Oh wow!
And it was. We had a small theater company at the time, and we were all kind of partners in this theater group, and we did this play, and we became sort of fascinated with this character, and so I said, after Joe the King, I said, I want to, I had opportunities here and there to make, because I had gotten a little bit of attention off of Joe the King, because it had done well at Sundance, and I said, I really want to make Veins and Thumbtacks into a movie, and so I just turned my back to all the things the wise decisions I should have made, like.
I mean, that's a ballsy move.
Yeah.
That is a ballsy move. I mean, that's what my question would be, and I don't mean to interrupt you here, but I think it dovetails with what you're talking about is, you have all these not all these, but you have a lot of Hollywood opportunities. You can continue working in these big productions, and yet you decide to go and pursue these personal small indies. And is it, and you're talking about, your troubled childhood.
Right.
I mean, can you talk about a little bit about what are you doing? Are you exercising demons, or are you working things out?
Well,
or are you
Joe the King definitely exercising demons.
It worked for you, Frank? Because listen, I think, without getting into it, you and I probably might come from a very similar upbringing, because my mother was a partier, and she drank and used drugs and whatnot, and she had a boyfriend that was an alcoholic that was very abusive to my brother and I. And but in that, though, I play these scenarios out in my head all the time about how entertaining they might be to other people, as horrible as they are. But I've always been afraid to go to the page with it for some reason. But it sounds like it worked out a lot for you inside.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, at the time, I didn't realize it. I wanted to write it. Like I said, I thought it'd make a good short novel. And some of the writers that I was reading at the time were sort of exploring the same kind of territory. But I'm not really. I realize I'm not a novelist, but I've been acting in films for at that point 15 years. I know how to write a screenplay, which I did, and it did. It kind of put closure on a lot of things that I was feelings that I had, about my parents and my family, and it did piss them off, unfortunately. They didn't like it. I didn't talk to my mom for a year.
Is that right?
Yeah. She and I painted a pretty sympathetic portrait of her. my dad.
Is she that protective of your father, or?
Well, no, she just didn't like. She's a very like it's funny. People have a tendency to rewrite history over a period of time. So they don't want to remember the darkness, and they don't want to remember the darkest episodes. And you know, my father had passed away in the early '90s, and my older brother was cool. Then he actually co-wrote the score for the film, so he was cool. And I left my sisters out of it, and but my mom was we went through hell as children and as a family at the hands of kind of as I said, a crazy drunk, but it was very therapeutic, and it became sort of a theme in my films that came after, like this darkness and the sadness, which
and anger,
yeah, and it's and it's a tough thing to people don't want to people are afraid of making these kinds of films. They don't want to like they're afraid of it on the page. The Jimmy Show, for instance, after I did Joe the King, that film won the screenwriting award at the Sundance Film Festival, was nominated for the jury prize at the Sundance, and won a bunch of film festival awards. And so I got signed by the William Morris Agency, and that Harvey Weinstein offered me a job to direct a film for him, and it was with Cisco. You remember Cisco, the Thong Song guy?
What the rap? It was
yes,
a rapper. Yeah, I do.
And I read the script.
Big fan, Frank.
Yeah. But the point is, my agents, so I signed with the William Morris Agency, and they sent me this. This is the first thing they send me. It's this thing that it's a Miramax or Dimension or whatever at the time wanted to make this film, and for some reason they wanted me to direct this film. And I read it, and I said, I don't see why they want me to direct this film, and it needs a lot of work, and I don't want with all due respect to Cisco, I'm not going to be the guy to introduce
Cisco.
Yeah, I don't think I'm the guy to introduce him to the world. And so I said no, and that was a great. This is all kind of just lore associated with the Jimmy Show. So
That's great.
But that it takes just as much balls to say no to something.
It took a lot of balls because Harvey Weinstein blacklisted me. He doesn't take kindly to the word no, and so I was kind of unceremoniously dropped by my agent, William Morris agent. But I went, and I'm very proud to say I went and made the Jimmy Show. And
nice, man. Hey,
but
absolutely.
The William Morris agent lady said, "Who wants to see a movie about this guy?" I said, I don't know, but we'll find out. And so I wrote it, and I actually wrote it for Ethan was going to play Jimmy and he was going to be, we had this idea that he would play Jimmy O'Brien, and he would be kind of an ex-jock, an high school football player, and yada yada. It didn't work out with Ethan, although he is in the film. And I just reprised the role that I did on stage.
Yeah, you did a really you did a great. That role is perfect for you. There's no doubt about it. What? Stand-up comedy. Is this something you have a passion for? Do you adore it like we all do here?
I do. I love it, and that's why I wanted to play this role on stage and make a film about it, because it's such an impossible thing to do, and to do well. And when I was rehearsing the play, I went and did it. I did it at various open mic nights around Manhattan. And it was
takes a lot of balls, Joe.
Yeah, and I had no material. I equipped myself with maybe 2 or 3 jokes, very similar to Jimmy in the movie. Like, I had maybe 2 or 3 really bad jokes, but then I just started talking about my own shit and my own life with the crowd, and they reacted very similarly, only worse, and only more vocally.
Oh.
Than the crowds in the movie. They don't like that. But the thing that I realized while doing that is, it's a scary fucking place to be. And I've been on stage my whole life, but being alone on stage and trying to make people laugh is the most incredibly difficult thing to do, and I have so much regard and respect for
You
comedians.
have to.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's that's but what Jimmy doesn't realize is you can't just. But he kind of he makes
Jimmy O'Brien.
he
He's
makes a go of
awesome.
it.
Yeah, he's fresh. He's young. He's angry.
Yes, and that's really all he is. And but he has no comic timing, no humor, no material, and that's a very difficult thing to.
But he did. But he
Hey,
thinks he should.
hey, Frank,
he
can you
should be
can you
funny.
talk a little bit about just the process in adapting? I write, and the bulk of what I've done in the past 5 years has been adapting stage plays or other work into screenplay, and I love the process. But I didn't realize this was a one-act play, so.
Yeah.
To be able to take a play, obviously the fatal flaw you see often when plays are adapted is that it never really turns that corner into the language of cinema, and it still feels like you're just watching a play that they move some locations around. You really used the language of cinema really well, and you told the story, and it seemed really like a film. You talk a little bit about your process. Did you work with the playwright? How did you make that transition?
Well, thank you. I'm glad to hear you say that, because it is a tough thing to do, because a lot of stage to film feels boxed in, and because it's a hard thing. Maybe I was fortunate that this was a one act, and not a full length play, and so what I was able to do was to completely open it up, and add a whole nother world to this, because it was a one act, and
Sure.
so I changed. I mean, what we were left with really, and which is Jonathan Mark Sherman, the playwright, his creation, and an incredible creation, is this character Jimmy, who lives in New Jersey with his invalid grandmother and his wife and his kid, and he works at a grocery store, and one day he decides he's going to be a stand-up comic,
Hmm.
and he has none of the requirements, as we said, to do so, but he decides he's going to do it because he wants to be heard. And so that was what the one act was. And so I took, the characters I just mentioned, Jimmy's fiance, wife, later his wife, and his grandmother, and the rest I kind of invented. And the playwright was not involved in the writing of the screenplay at all. I mean, he approved
Okay.
he approved the final draft of the script, and he had a couple of notes. He had two notes. I sent him like a 200-page first draft of the script, because I write very long. I still write longhand or shorthand, whatever you call it. I don't type. I write.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so it was 200 and something typed pages, and he had two comments in the play. The character refers to bed bugs, I think, and in the or no, termites, and in the screenplay, I made it roaches, and he said, please don't refer to roaches. And there was one other note, I can't remember what it was. Maybe I think
Of all the things.
He wanted you to. It needed to be termites.
it needed to be termites, and he was right, because these people wouldn't have roaches. And there was another remark that he made, and that was really it. And so, my process, it was just kind of, I was free to invent
Nice.
a
Yeah.
cinematic world for Jimmy O'Brien, and I changed his name. I added this whole thing with him being a runner,
Right.
and as kind of a metaphor for him running away from everything in his life, obviously, and
Yeah.
so it was those kinds of things. And,
That's nice. So you really had the spirit of this great character that this playwright had established, and then you just were able to run with it. Yeah, that's
yeah,
great. That's
yeah,
great.
it was a thrill for me, and I was lucky to have him. He's continues to be a good friend of mine. He's a really talented guy, and he's smart, and that, I had an idea and a vision. He said, take it and go. So yeah,
Nice. Very good.
yeah.
We're talking with actor, writer, director Frank Whaley. You could follow him on Twitter at the Frank Whaley.
Yeah.
Frank, is there an imposter out there on Twitter?
Is there?
I don't know. I'm asking you. It's the Frank Whaley.
Yeah, I don't. My wife set up my Twitter page. I still don't know how to use it. I think,
Oh, so she got the wife doing it, huh?
yeah. So there was a period of time. I'm not sure what my wife said. You need Twitter and Facebook. I said, why? Why do I need that? I've gotten on. 52 years of my life.
You've done all right without it.
And she, every couple of weeks she says, you need to update your Twitter page, and I turn and I say the same thing. I've never updated my Twitter page. You're the one who does that. So anyway, yeah. So that's, but if people want to find me, they can find me, I guess.
Frank, you're going to be working on. Well, we have. What do you have coming out? Luke Cage coming out. That's going to be awesome, huh?
Yeah, I'm doing that now. Actually, I have a movie called Monster Trucks that's coming out, and I did a movie called The Outskirts, which is it's out or coming out. I have another film, television kind of miniseries that I did with Richard Dreyfuss.
Is that Madoff?
Madoff, yep.
Yeah, that I'm looking forward to.
That's coming out, and
it's right up my alley.
That's going to be good. Dreyfuss is amazing, and Blythe Danner's in it, and I'm presently doing a series for Netflix, which is based on the Marvel comic Luke Cage.
Yeah, that's awesome. You play what's the character? Detective
Raphael Scarf.
Raphael Scarf. That's awesome. But that's big. I mean, Netflix is doing. They're doing really great over there. They have House of Cards and Orange is the New Black. Daredevil was well received. I've watched Narcos. That was really good. So they have a whole good thing going on there. And plus, you're part of the Marvel universe now, Frank.
Great. It's great.
I might have been the only actor that wasn't part of the Marvel universe.
Yeah, I might have been. Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy. I mean, there's just so much going on for you right now. Yeah. Frank, we're going to cut you loose in just a couple minutes. I just want to make sure the guys don't have anything else for you. I'm sure Adam has something.
I have 3 rapid fire questions for you to wrap it up.
Let's do it.
Okay. Number 1, have you ever been to the Whaley House in San Diego?
I have not. No.
Do you know of the Whaley House in San Diego?
I only know of the Whaley House in Syracuse, New York, and I stay.
That's where you live.
I stay very far away from that house.
Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2 is you've done a lot of film. You've done a lot of television. You have a preference?
These days, television. It's better scripted. Feature films are pretty much, as far as I'm concerned, kind of. They need a rebirth.
It's amazing over the past, probably just in our generation, the past 20 years or less, even the shift between television and film.
Yeah.
Where it was film actors, you were aspired to get out of TV into film.
Yeah.
And now it's almost gone the other way here.
When I started out, it was, you just didn't do television if you were, a feature film. Like when I was doing all those, Born of the Fourth and those Oliver Stone movies and Field of Dreams and that, I wouldn't hear of television. I wouldn't, I wouldn't do it. And now the crossover is, it's seamless but the better opportunities are in television
It sure seems that way, yeah.
Yeah, and there are some independent films that are, filmmakers that are fantastic out there, myself included.
Nice.
Yes.
My very last question: you've played so many great roles and memorable roles. What's the role that you haven't played yet? Is there a role? Is there something that you really want to do?
I'd love to play. My dream has always been to play Willie Loman in Death of a Salesman.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, and
Brian Dennehy.
Like Dennehy, yeah. I saw Dennehy on stage.
Hey, you fucking get this going already!
He's brilliant. He's brilliant at that.
Yes, he is.
And it's there's a lot of Willie Loman and Jimmy O'Brien.
Sure.
And so that's those I love that character. I love characters that are just trying to holding on for dear life. And
holding on to a dying dream.
Yeah, holding on to a dream, and I remember in the script of the Jimmy Show, I had a quote, which was, "Is a dream a lie if it don't come true, or is it something worse?" Which is Bruce Springsteen, and that's the basic, idea behind the Jimmy Show. Is where does it become a lie and to want something that you're not even sure what it is that you want, but to have a dream that's unattainable and never stop,
great,
and so that would be the role I would love to play.
I'm gonna have to. I don't know if you'll listen to the show, Frank, but I'll have Tom send you over the introduction that I wrote because I really focused on that. dreams and entitlement.
Yeah,
and
we do.
Yeah,
Joe and I really praise the Jimmy Show big
Oh,
time.
cool. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'll definitely listen.
Yeah. Hey, I have one last question.
Go
You
ahead.
grew up in Syracuse. My wife grew up in Syracuse and
Oh.
Marcellus up there.
Uh-huh.
I'm curious how many times you've been to the Great New York State Fair, and are you a huge fan of the butter sculpture as I am?
I've been to the New York State Fair many, many, many times, and I actually take my kids there now, and we love the butter sculpture. We love our favorite thing to do is to go. My daughter and my son and daughter love to hold the baby chicks in the 4-H thing. My wife and I go every year.
The chocolate milk.
Yeah, the chocolate milk, and the thing we love are these sandwiches. They make lettuce and tomato and this weird spiced mayo sandwich. I have no idea. But we drive 6 hours to get to Syracuse for that sandwich. Yeah, we love the State Fair. I love it.
That fair is amazing.
It's
When I first got there to see that butter sculpture, I was just wrapped.
Yeah, it's in the center of the dairy building.
That's great. Man.
When I was a kid, we had some crazy times at the State Fair. I had some very monumental moments. At the State Fair, we never paid to get in. There was a fence near, like on Onondaga Boulevard that we would jump, which I'm sure is now gone.
That's hilarious.
So you could check out Frank Whaley's 2014 film, like Sunday Like Rain.
Yeah.
Frank's going to be in Madoff. He plays Harry Markopoulos.
Yep.
He's also going to be appearing in Luke Cage as Detective Raphael Scarfy, right?
Yes. Scarf. Yeah.
Scarf. Okay. And you've also been on Ray Donovan, Gotham, and Under the Dome. For all you television fanatics, he's been on all 3 shows. I watched Gotham. He was awesome. He was on early on.
Yeah.
And you were pretty nuts in that one, Frank.
Yeah. That was a guy. Yeah, and maybe that character, you may not have seen the last of that character.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, that's good. Well, there you go. A little tidbit for you Gotham fans. And also, Joe, real quick, Frank is our second guest this season that has also appeared on Curb Your Enthusiasm, which is really cool. So big fan of that, and a big fan of the episode with you on that one, Frank. You're absolutely hilarious.
That was funny.
Hey, listen, I want to thank you so much for your time, for your sincerity, for your beautiful acting work and your excellent directing work, Frank. I hope that it continues. I definitely want to see more of Frank Whaley, the filmmaker. I think you are doing a wonderful thing. You're keeping independent cinema alive. And hey, listen, dude, thanks a lot for coming on. It was a real treat and a real pleasure from all of us, Frank. You're awesome.
Been my pleasure, guys. I look forward to hearing the show, and we'll talk again soon.
I hope so, man. Definitely. We'd love to have you back on, man. Thank you so much.
Next time something's coming out, I'll drop you guys a line and come back.
I would love it. You're welcome here anytime, man. I could. I mean, if you want to move in too.
You're welcome. You're welcome. For you, we'll even make an exception and let Val Kilmer on the show if he wants to join in.
All right. Excellent.
All right, Frank. Thanks a lot, my man.
Talk to you soon.
Take care.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, all right. There it is, Mr. Frank Whaley on the Cutting Room Movie Podcast. What an awesome dude, guys, huh?
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, he's just
Very nice.
Yeah, just full of sincerity. Very nice. Yeah, I mean, really great job from Joe and Adam tonight. I can't thank you guys enough. I hope you had as much fun as I did with this.
We didn't have to do anything, man. Frank Whaley did all the work, man. I mean, he was awesome, man. Great talk.
Yeah, he gave us so much, and that's always cool. I mean, there's just so much to cover with this guy, Adam. You know what I'm saying? You do this for 4 hours, you know?
Oh, God, yeah, absolutely. I could have kept going.
Well, listen, definitely check out our episode with the King of Comedy and the Jimmy Show. It's on our website right next to this episode, and you can check out last week's episode where we talked Kevin Pollak's 2015 documentary film Misery Loves Comedy. I'd like to thank Mr. Frank Whaley for dropping by the Cutting Room Movie Podcast. You could follow me on Twitter at Thomas Detloff, at TCRM Podcast. Like us on Facebook, all that craziness. You can check out Adam Shoulder's Starland PC show at starlandpc.com. You could also check out Max Cook's blog at maxcookuncorked.com, and definitely check out Joe's film work, another great independent cinema filmmaker. Seriously, Joe, don't laugh, Joe. You're very good at what you do, man.
It's very difficult to be mentioned in the same sentence as a guy.
Well, listen, Frank Whaley is mentioned.
Kilmer.
Frank Whaley is mentioned in the same sentence as Martin Scorsese.
I know.
So we make exceptions here.
Hey, we throw a wide ring around the world here at the cutting room.
Yeah. The music's done by the Zillatones. Check them out at www.thezillatones.com. Guys, thanks again very much. In the meantime, we are over and we are out. Ciao.
Tune in next time to satisfy more of your strange desires. The Cutting Room Movie Podcast. We do chicken right.
Big fan. The best. No, but seriously, man, this dude I have been watching since I was a little kid. I mean, he obviously pops up early in my life in career opportunities. And what's so great about career opportunities, this is where he, this guy shares scenes with some of the very best actors in this business. I mean, we're talking about Kevin Spacey, Samuel L. Jackson.
It does scenes for some of the greatest directors, too, as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, not to even mention that, but he's been with Jack Nicholson, Tom Cruise, Kevin Costner, Marlon Brando. At the beginning of his career, I mean, his first, I think, really big break besides his role in Ironweed, he has a starring role in Career Opportunities. And at the beginning of that movie, he goes head-to-head with John Candy in a hilarious scene. I mean, Candy is like the comedic heavyweight of the past 50 years. I mean, he's amazing on screen. And Frank Whaley is just really almost scene stealing with this dude. And he's just a young man at the time, which is awesome. But he, Joe, I mean, he's been a big part of our lives for a very, very long time.
Yeah, absolutely. Man. And popping up in
a million of them. Yeah. But we're going to concentrate today on his 2001 film, The Jimmy Show, because our theme the past couple of weeks has been stand-up comedy. Last week, we talked about Kevin Pollak's 2015 documentary, Misery Loves Comedy. And as everyone knows, this week, we're doing Scorsese's The King of Comedy and Frank Whaley's 2001 film, The Jimmy Show. And Joe, you wrote a beautiful intro.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it was a really great intro. Very surprising, but I guess our love for independent film is just, it can be a little bit overwhelming. And Frank here really delivers. What you do in your intro is you refer to his film as a blues song.
Yeah, I'd love to run that by him too. That was an angle that kind of seemed pretty obvious to me.
Yeah,
like a big, like Martin Scorsese film or whatever. But he doesn't want to blow it. He doesn't. His main concern was not screwing up and not.
He's an artist.
He's an artist.
I get the sense that he is a hell of a performer because, I saw Green Day maybe about 5 years ago or so out here in LA at the Forum. And, this guy was playing to the last row on the top tier, like all the way in the back. And I don't mean just volume and intensity. I mean, as a performer, he was really reaching everybody. That stood out to me, even above and beyond the music that I like, is that this dude is a performer. So I imagine, I'm guessing that translates well to the screen once he settles into it.
He cares a lot about what he does, and he's a great guy to have around because he didn't ask for anything. He didn't, he came on to it was a very, very low budget film. We didn't have any extras, any perks for Billy Joe, and he understood that. Didn't want and made a point of saying, I don't want anything. I just I just want to show up, do my thing, and he was very friendly, and he, in terms of taking direction, he was very, very adamant about me telling him, how I wanted it and what I wanted from him, and so it was good. It was it's always a little bit tricky working with somebody new. Like, the main actor in that film was a 12-year-old who had never done a film either. So I had to. I kind of took the same approach with Billy Joe as I did with the young, with the young kid that I had in the central role, and just kept it real simple. Kept it real simple, real loose, and you just get as much as you can, and then you sort it out in the editing room, and so that's it.
Music seems to be such a big part of you and your obviously Robert Whaley's life, Frank. Listen, we're going to talk about the Jimmy Show. We're going to definitely do.
This gang of roustabouts are cutting up cinema like it's never been cut up before. There's going to be reviews, there's going to be interviews, there's going to be hijinks, and there's going to be a whole lot of cutting in this room. The Cutting Room Movie Podcast, coming at you 128 kilobytes per second.
Hey everyone, welcome to a very special interview episode of the Cutting Room Movie Podcast. As always, as usual, I'm your host, Tom Detloff. Tonight, my co-hosts, once again, I got Mr. Joe Christiana, and the counselor, Adam Shoulder, is with me. In a few minutes, we're going to talk to actor, writer, director, Frank Whaley, Joe. Frank Whaley is on the Cutting Room.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan. I had to contact him to get him on the Skype, and I realized he's probably the only guest that I've been nervous to talk to. I after watching the Jimmy Show, I have such great admiration.
It's amazing. I mean, think about like all the guests that we've had on here. I mean, we've had some amazing people on here. The only one that had ever really made me nervous was Brian Dennehy, and it wasn't because it was Brian Dennehy. It was because like before we got on the air, he was very feisty. He was like, let's get this fucking thing rolling already. I know you're a Golden Globe winner and everything, but geez Louise.
I was just like, hey Frank, I'm this is Joe from the Cutting Room.
I'm really toured on stage with my favorite band, The Replacements. He was
That's right.
helping them out a little bit, which is
he's got some street cred with you now, Tom.
Yeah, now all of a sudden I'm a big fan, and you throw him in a Frank Whaley movie, forget about it.
I think I understand. I was the same way with Green Day because I grew up. We're probably in the same age category, and I grew up listening to like Clash and the Jam, and I when I heard Green Day, it seemed somewhat derivative of all that, and so I was kind of a purist, and I didn't want to accept Green Day, but what I found out, but my kids love Green Day. I have young teenagers; they love Green Day. So, and Billy Joe is such a smart guy. He's such a talented musician, and I think when I listen to American Idiot, that kind of takes the music that I grew up with and loved, like punk rock music and that, and he makes it into something current and now, and he's such a beautiful guy, and he's such a smart guy, and he wants to be an actor, and I think
that's amazing.
Yeah, and I think he's done another feature after, Like Sunday Like Rain was his first feature, and then he did another one which I haven't heard anything about, but I know that he's very serious about it, and he works really hard at it, and Like Sunday Like Rain, he had a brief but very pivotal role, and he did a great job. So
how you real quick on Like Sunday Like Rain with Billy Joe? Yeah. I mean, how was he? How did he take direction? I mean, did he seem natural? What was it? Was it a learning process with him? I mean, tell me a little bit about his chops.
Acting is not as easy as it looks, and it comes very, very naturally to some, and others have to work at it a little bit to get to where they need to be. And I put Billy in that category. Also, he was very nervous because It was his first film, and he's on a film set, and he wants to not because he's on a
Just the beauty of feeling bad, I think.
Right. And he really, I mean, he just captures so much pain and disturbance in the Jimmy Show, and still, like, I mean, he leaves room to laugh too, which is amazing. It's just a really great piece of independent cinema. Adam, you were, and that was the first time you saw the Jimmy Show.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, so this is.
Oh, it was it's a great film, and I look forward to exploring that a little bit here.
So why are we listening to me? This whole.
Yeah.
I mean,
Why the hell are you doing all the talking? Right out loud. Isn't Frank Whaley here?
Yeah, he's here somewhere.
I can talk to you anytime, Tom.
Yeah, no. All right, that's all the time we have, so we're gonna have to wrap things up. Let's talk to Frank. Frank, how you doing, my man?
I'm great. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can totally hear you fine. Fine.
Welcome, man.
Yeah,
Thanks.
definitely. Welcome to the Cutting Room Movie Podcast.
I'm just sitting here having a beer with Dennehy.
Dude, this guy loved to drink. He was telling us some war stories when he was on, man. He was just going. I mean, he was giving us the dirt on everything that happened in the '80s, for crying out loud. He was hilarious.
If you do an X-ray of his stomach, you'll just see like a Schlitz sign. That's what
an old neon one with
old neon, and the H is missing.
Frank Schlitz, I thought you were a Pabst Blue Ribbon guy.
Yes, it's good. That's right. Yeah, we probably. Schlitz probably we probably wanted I tried to get Schlitz, but they wouldn't let me use the the product in the movie.
So, man, you've been really busy lately. In 2014, your latest directorial effort, Like Sunday Like Rain, was very well received. You had Billy Joe Armstrong in the film, which is really really interesting. I got to tell you, I kind of grew up listening to punk rock, from the 70s and 80s. So Green Day to me was always, I was always a little skeptical of them. But Billy Joe, this past year, Billy Joe Armstrong actually